Hi everyone, welcome to the workshop Coding a Teacher Thank You Note using CMU CS Academy.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm currently a junior at Carnegie Mellon studying computer science with a concentration in computational biology. I am currently in the teacher support team, so I help lead professional development sessions as well as answer teacher support tickets. I'm also coordinating the CSEdWeek videos, so all the videos that have been being released this week. And I also am working on research support at CS Academy. So yeah, I'm going to be walking through coding a teacher thank you note. And this is basically just a note that you can send as a program to your teacher, and they can basically just feel the appreciation that you've had from being their student. This doesn't only have to be your teachers, it can be anyone else a part of your school, or even your parents, your friends, your family, etc. So the first thing that I personally think would be really cool for a teacher thank you is that we could basically have a little message that says, oh, you have a message. And this is kind of similar to what emails will have. They'll have an email that says, oh, you have a message. And then you have a button that you can say, okay, let's open the message. So I'm first going to write comments throughout the code of what I think would be good. And then we can actually code up what the comments say. So I'm gonna first have, as I said before, we want to have a label that says you have a message. And then we also want a button that says open message. Cool. And then what else we want to do is we basically, what I was kind of thinking is that because we have this first page that will have the label that says you have a message and a button that says like a button that says open message, we then probably want a couple of helper functions. And so the first helper function would probably be a helper function that would be called open message. And what open message would do is it will open the message after clicking the open message button. And so right now, I'm not entirely sure what arguments open message might have. It may have one or two or no arguments. But yeah, that's one of the first functions that we would have. Another thing that I was thinking about is that it might be helpful if we can potentially reuse the message code so that we can maybe use our code to write multiple messages. So instead of having open the message with the text for one specific thank you note, it would be really cool if open message called another helper function that would draw the sentence that would be the thank you for the current teacher that we are trying to send the thank you note to. So I'm going to also have another helper function called draw sentence, which is going to draw the sentence, it's going to draw the sentence in the message note for the teacher. So we have these two current ideas for what the functions that we have. And now we kind of want to think about what function might be helpful for the supporting open the message. So we kind of want to think what function is going to make the most sense if we want it to basically trigger the open message function after we click something. And a great candidate for that is the built-in function onMousePress. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding a couple of cool elements to the background, just because I think that having some fun color would be good for the teacher. So I'm going to make the background be a gradient of blue and green. You can choose any other colors, or you can choose a solid color, but I just think the gradient will be a nice way to introduce and kind of have as a first card. And then what I want to do is have this like indicator message that will tell the teacher that they have a message. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to make a label that's going to say you have a message. And what they're going to, I'm going to put the position at 250. So you can kind of use inspector here in this bottom value on the bottom right XY coordinates here. And you can see it's like around up here. And I'm going to make the fill white so that it can stand out against the blue and green gradient. And yeah, let's take a look at what it currently looks like. So I kind of want the size to be a little bit bigger, and I think the bold will also make it stand out a little bit. So I'm going to make the size equals 20 and the bold be true, and you can see it pops out more. And there's a lot of different fonts that you can use. Right here, you can see that I have the reference to the label, and you can see some examples of the different fonts we can use as Arial, Monospace, Caveat. I'm going to use Cinzel, but yeah, feel free to explore. So that's Cinzel. Another example that they had was Sacramento. So let's take a look at that. That's a really nice font as well. I actually might use Sacramento instead, but make it a little bit bigger so it's more clear. So yeah, this is a great entrance. You know, you have a message and it helps this teacher know what the purpose of the program is. So that's great. So now what we want to do is we want to have a button, and a way that we could do a button is we could actually create this button using a group. And the reason why this might be helpful to make the button a group that consists of both the rectangle and the label is that part of this program would require you to both hide the indicator message, the message that we declared on line 4, as well as this button after we open up the message, because we don't want this button as well as this indicator message to remain after we open up the message, and we want to make it easy for the person that is opening the message to clearly read the message. So I'm going to make this open message button, and what this is going to do is it's going to group two elements together. Firstly, a rectangle that would represent the button itself, and then on top of it, a label that is going to be the text that's going to say open the message. So let's do that. So when we're declaring a group, we first want to put, I'm first going to declare this rectangle. And just for colors, I'm going to make it blue with a black border so it's clear against the current gradient background. And let's take a look at that first. So we don't have the text yet. I just want to show kind of what the button would look like in the group. So that's good, and it's very clear against the current background. Actually, let's maybe make the fill green so it's a little bit more clear. Okay, so yeah, that looks really good. And then what I want to do now is also group together this open message button with a label that will say open message. And I'm just going to center that in the middle of this button. Oopsies. And for clarity, I'm going to make the fill of the text black. And I'll also make the size equals 20. The bold will be equal to true. And maybe I'll do the font of Cinzel here for this label. And it's really important to remember when we're making a group, you want to add the comma between the two elements in the group. So perfect. Yeah, we have this great message that indicates that we have a message, and then we have a button that will say open message, but we currently do not have any messages. We don't have, like, when we click on the open message button, nothing will happen. So let's change that. So basically the main idea for what we wanted to do is we wanted to say, okay, after we click the open message button, a message screen will pop up and we'll hide both this indicator message label as well as this open message button. So let's begin with firstly doing the basically having this definition of onMousePress and saying, okay, after we open the message, after we click open message, then we will open the message. So we have the def onMousePress. Actually, we'll have the required requirements of mouse X and mouse Y, which is the location of where your mouse is when you're clicking on the canvas. And so after you have this function, then what you want to do is you kind of want to actually declare another variable that will let us know when the button has been clicked once. And the reason why you want to do this is because after you click this button here once, you don't want it to keep showing the message screen over and over again. So I'm going to declare an app.isClicked and set that to false initially. And basically what we want to do is, in the case that the mouse X and mouse Y is within the bounds of this rectangle, and the bounds of this rectangle are going to be if mouse X is in the range of 100 to 300, and then if mouse Y is in the range of 150 to 250. So you want to say if mouse X is greater than 100 and mouse X is less than 300, so 100, as you can remember, as a reminder here, it's from 100 to 300. And then for the mouse Y, again, it is 150 to 250. So we have mouse Y is greater than 150 and mouse Y is less than 250. Then what you want to do is you want basically the message to be open. We haven't declared the open message function, so we can just put that in for now, but if we ran this now, there would definitely be an error because we haven't even said that the message is open. And so as previously mentioned, I talked about how we want to have this global variable is clicked. And basically, I can later on show you an example of why having this would be helpful. But for now, I'm just going to implement it and explain it a little bit later. But basically, after we open the message, we first want to check if app is not clicked. So we want to say if not app is clicked. So if this is saying that if we haven't clicked this button before, then we want to then open the message as well. So right after we open the message, we want to set it to true so that if we keep clicking this over and over again after this button has been clicked once, it doesn't keep opening the message over and over again. Awesome. So that's kind of the structure of what our function is looking like right now, but you're going to see if we click here, we will get an error because we have not made the function open message. But yeah, we still have this great first page interface. So let's begin with trying to firstly draw the message and draw the message screen, as well as to write code that will help us draw sentences for the individual teacher notes. So let's first begin with open message. So the main idea with open message is there's a couple parts of it that we want to complete. The first thing we want to do is we want to remove the indicator message and the open message button. So that's the first thing we will want to do. And then another thing we want to do is we want to create a new message background. And then last thing we want to do is to actually write the message out for the specific teacher. Okay. So let's first begin with removing the indicator message and the open message button. So a really great property that a lot of these shapes will have is the visibility. So as you can see here, when labels are initially declared, their visibility will be set to true. This is also the same as groups. They also have this property. But yeah, basically what we want to do is set both the indicator message and the open message button visibility to false. So we're going to say indicator message.visible is equal to false. And then in the open message button.visible is also equal to false. So let's see if this works right now. Yeah, perfect. But we also oh, I'm sorry, this should be on line 19. So this looks good, like what it does what it expects what we expect it to do. When we click on that button, everything goes away. The two declared labels and buttons do disappear. But what we also want to do is actually create a background where it's readable for the teacher's message. So let's create a paper looking like background. And how I'll do this is I'm going to first set the background equal to white. We can see, so awesome. Now it's set to white, but let's add a little bit of personality to it. And we could do this through kind of making make the background for the message look like paper. So how we can do this is we can basically make this. We can firstly draw some of the horizontal and vertical lines of the paper. So we have this, if you guys have used notebooks and the paper notebooks, we usually have this one red like horizontal line, and you can see we use this custom red color for this line. You can tinker around and do whatever color you like, but just to keep it realistic to paper, we use this kind of faded red color. And then we also want to add the actual horizontal lines in the paper. So I'm going to create these lines that have a fill equals dim gray. And they're going to have the line width of equal to 400. And then the dashes are going to be from 2 to 57. And ta-da, these are basically kind of like a imitation of what paper would look like. And yeah, it's really cool that you can kind of use these three simple lines of code in order to kind of make this very simple but effective paper looking like screen. Okay, awesome. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can actually write specific messages and how we can use this idea of reusability and really make it so that we don't have to keep making individual letters, and we can just draw the sentences on top of the letters instead of having to make its own picture of each letter each time. So what we kind of want to do is we want to have this function called draw sentence, and what we want to do is we want to input a sentence into draw sentence and then for it to draw the sentences onto the current page. So let's just first put as an argument hello world, and instead of doing strings, I'm going to be using string arrays as inputs for each of the sentence. So you can think of each of the commas as spaces themselves, and basically like this, the purpose of this as an equivalent string would just be hello world. So what we want to do is we want to declare draw sentence, and we want it to take into the sentence argument, which is just going to be a string array that will spell out the sentence word by word and in a string array. And what we want to do is we want to basically make it so that we can write the words one by one on each of the lines of the paper. So here we can see that if we were able to center like the beginning label at around 80 or 100, this would enable for the X value of the label, this would enable it to be after this red line and to be after this red line on the message. So let's just set this new X as equal to 100. And then for the new Y, or just a Y location of the first label, we can kind of see that the Y location of this first line is going to be at 50. And so if we put the Y value at 40, and then we basically have the text size at around 10 or 15, this would also enable it to be bottom aligned so that it would be close to this black line. So let's have new Y equals 40. So then what we want to do is we just want to range through all the different words in the sentence, and we basically just want to draw them onto the sheet of paper, right? And one thing that we can do in order to make this process a little bit easier is we can basically declare like a global function that's going to be a group. that's going to essentially store all the different words from the sentence. So we can just say, so then each time we encounter a sentence, we can actually first add it as a label to the group. And yeah, so we can just say we're going to add the sentence I, and we're going to have it at new X and new Y. It's going to have the size of equal to 15, and the alignment is going to be at the bottom. And what we then want to do is at each step, we basically want to we basically want to add spaces, and to do this, we want to update the new X and new Y values if needed. So we're going to say, if we're just going to say new X is going to be equal to 10 times the length of the current sentence I. So it's going to be 10 times the length of the sentence I plus the length of the sentence I plus 1. We're just gonna do a division by 2. So it's basically taking the average of the current word and the next word and dividing the 2 in order to get the space in between the current word and the next word. And the one thing that you want to take into account is if you're actually at like the last word, you're not going to have another word so that you could actually take the average. So in that case, you want to take into account for that. So you want to say if the I is equal to the length of sentence minus 1, then you want to actually do another thing where you can just do instead, like you add new X plus or equals 10 times length sentence I. So you just do it with the current word instead of doing the average of 2, the current word and the next word in order to determine the next space. Awesome. So then what we want to do is we also want to account for if the X would wrap around. Actually, let's just take a look at what this would look like right now. So, okay, it still looks a little bit weird. So we need to try and fix some of those problems. Okay, I see the bug. I forgot to multiply this value here, but yeah, you can see that it actually draws out the words onto the screen, and we can see that there's a nice spacing, but let's try and show why wrapping around might be helpful. So I'm going to say hello world. I'm just going to make my sentence longer essentially. My name is Stephanie and I. Okay, so you can see the big problem here is there's going to be this runoff on the side. And so how we want to account for that is what we want to do is we want to basically, we can say if the X index of the word is going to be greater than 340, then we basically just want to move our Y down to plus or equals 60. And then we want to start at the same location that we originally started at, which was 100. So we're going to add this wrapping around. So if new X is greater than or equal to 340, and then what we want to do is we want to readjust the Y position to plus or equals 60. And then new X we're going to reset it back to 100. Let's take a look. So yeah, we got this. It says, hello world, my name is Stephanie and now it's like wrapped around, which is really nice. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of the basic template for how our code is going to look like. And basically what we want to do now is we want to kind of actually personalize these and add messages so that they're actually for specific teachers. Okay, so you can see that this is now what the message looks like with a real like response that I have, or a real thank you note that I have for my high school computer science teacher. So it says, Dear Mr. Stevens, thank you so much for being a wonderful high school CS teacher. I appreciated how you introduced me to computational biology. Have a happy CSEdWeek. And so now I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this idea of reusability and how we can actually reuse this code. And how we can even add like a passcode to see message trick with this function. So I have these two sentences here, and I'm just gonna paste them and declare them as two variables. And what I want to do is I kind of want to show like a cool trick that we can do in order to make it so that teachers, you basically use this program for multiple teachers and they can get the message for them if you tell them a specific secret passcode. So how we can do this is we can first declare the two sentences that we have. So for sentence one, this is from my bio teacher in high school. So it says, "Dear Ms. Chrissy, thank you so much for being a wonderful high school biology teacher. I appreciated how you helped coordinate iGEM, which is a program I did at my high school, and have a happy CSEdWeek." So I have these two sentences, and I basically want to send this program to both of them. But I don't want to, like, I wrote these two sentences out, and I don't want to make this message for each of them. So I can actually call both of them into draw sentence. And so you can see here, like, if I do sentence one, you can see that it will put in the message I have to my teacher, Miss Chrissy, and if I call sentence two, it will have my message to Mr. Stevens. So what I want to do now is I want to basically make it so that I get a text input from the user in order to figure out which message I need to display. So I'm going to just use a conditional, and I'm going to use the getTextInput function. And it has this following syntax where you basically will get a string. You'll input a string that will be the prompt for getting the text input, and then you can get the response. So I'm going to say app.getTextInput and say, what is your message passcode? And let's say that I have if response, which is the response from the student or from the person that's typing in the message passcode, if the response is equal to bio, then I'm going to draw the sentence. I will draw the sentence for Miss Chrissy. So that's going to be sentence one. Else, I'm going to draw sentence two. Or maybe not, maybe let's not do else. Let's also make it a conditional. So we want to say if the response is equal to CS, then I will draw the message for Mr. Stevens. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So now we get what is your message passcode. So if we do bio, we get Miss Chrissy's message pop up. And then if we do CS, we get Mr. Stevens' message pop up. And if we do nothing, nothing pops up. So yeah, basically as a rundown of what we were able to cover during this video and during this tutorial, we firstly talked a lot about groups and labels. We talked about firstly declaring a button and a message using label, rectangle labels, and groups. And then what we were able to do is we were also able to create like a cool background and make it like stylistically pretty. And then after that, we were able to implement an onMousePress function that basically enabled us to change the screens when we press the mouse. After that, we were able to make this open message function that was able to change the visibility of two of our stylistic elements in the home screen. And then we were able to create this cool message background that makes it look like we are writing on paper. After that, we were able to write the function that actually draws the words in the sentence. And then after that, we were able to add this getTextInput feature that enables us to have secret passcodes so that the teacher that we're actually giving the message to can actually access their specific message. So I highly recommend that you go through this process. There's definitely a lot more stylistic elements you could add to this. You could maybe add like cute little animal, I don't know, like animal designs along here. You could make the paper sign the paper background a little bit more exciting. You could do a lot in order to make this stylistic, and you could definitely make it so that you could add a lot of art to a specific teacher's interest. So like maybe they really love cows, you could add a cow print background and add a cow print message. But yeah, I hope this is like a really helpful basic template for how to code a teacher thank you. And I really hope you got to learn a little bit more about a lot of the cool different functions and features that CS Academy offers. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.